Good morning. My name is Barbara Fuller, and as chair of the board, I welcome you to this November 21st, 2023 working session of the Washtenaw County Board of Road Commissioners. Our office coordinator, Aaron Smith, will describe how our meetings operate, how to access the agenda packet, and how people may participate remotely. Aaron.
Thanks, Chair Fuller. There are multiple ways to make public comment during today's working session, whether you're joining us in person or virtually. If you're here in person and would like to make public comment, please fill out the sign-in sheet now. If you're joining us virtually, we'll ask you to raise your hand at the appropriate time in the agenda. If you're joining us virtually and are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, submit a comment in the chat feature and I will help you troubleshoot. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be posted to wcroads.org in the next few days. There are printed copies of today's meeting agenda on the table near the front door, and it is also posted on our website. And now I'll turn it back over to Chair Fuller.
Thank you, Aaron. I now call this November 21st, 2023 working session of the Washtenaw County Road Commission to order and ask Aaron to please call the roll.
Chair Barb Fuller.
Present.
Vice Chair Rod Green.
Present.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas is absent at this time. Commissioner Joanne McCullum.
Present.
And then Commissioner Jeff Smers.
Present.
And then the following directors are in attendance: Managing Director Cheryl Siddle, Managing Director Matt Washtenaw, Director of Engineering Brent Schlack, Director of Operations Adam Lape, and Director of Finance and IT Dan Ackerman.
Very good. At this point in time, we move to public participation. This is the time set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes to address the board. Aaron will explain how people may be recognized to offer comments.
Since this is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and virtual attendees, we will take turns between those attending in person and virtually. For virtual attendees, we have provided some instructions on the screen on how to participate and make public comment. If you're attending this meeting virtually and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand now. If you dialed into the meeting from your phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. Our communications manager will unmute virtual participants with raised hands one at a time and will announce your username or last 4 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. And please share your name and address before beginning your comments. And then for our in-person attendees, we'll start with those who have signed up on the sign-in sheet. If you didn't sign in, you're still welcome to make comment. I'll notify you when it is your turn. At this time, we don't have in-person or virtual attendees that would like to make comment.
All right, we will move along. The agenda's first item today is the 2023 final budget review. I will hand this over to Cheryl.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Fuller. I'm going to very quickly hand this over to Dan Ackerman, who is our Director of Finance and IT. Obviously, this time of year, we go through where we're at through the year, and then obviously the next step we'll be looking at next year. So Dan?
Good morning, Commissioners. Dan Ackerman, Director of Finance and IT. I can't believe we're at this point of the year. It's cliche to say the years just seem to go by quicker and quicker. And I can't believe we're talking about year-end budgets and new year budgets and where'd the year go, right? It seemed like summer is just starting and now we're here. And I think the snow is going to fly and what? No? I thought I saw something like a little blip. Maybe it won't stay. No?
No. Cheryl's not leaving town, so we're good.
Thank you, Mother Nature. Yeah, right. Cheryl's not going on vacation anywhere.
Not yet.
So we'll be talking about 2 budgets. Year-end 2023, where we think we're going to end up, and then our preliminary 2024 budget. There's a lot of information there, so feel free to ask questions as we go along. More than happy to answer them. And if I can't, I will try and research and maybe have those answers for you by the board meeting this afternoon. So with that, I guess we'll just get right into it. So we'll start with 2023 year-end budget. I always like to just cut right to the chase. So we'll just cut right to the chase. With all the recommended adjustments for 2023, we're actually going to increase our fund balance by about $626,000. Keep in mind, a lot of that is related to carryovers for equipment and projects and so on. So it's not necessarily a savings per se, it's just where all the numbers are coming in where we think our projects are going to end up. We'll talk a little bit about equipment. So with that $626,000 increase, and also as it says up there, from quarter Q2. So in Q2, we made several adjustments, and from our numbers from Q2 to year end, we're going to add another 626,000 back. So our deficit spending is going to be reduced to 6.9 million. And we always look at fund balance, obviously very important to have fund balance in case of emergencies and so on. So that would leave us with an ending fund balance of about $14.7 million, which is approximately 16% of expenditures. Keep in mind, Plant Moran has some targets of about 15 to 20 or 25%. So it's a bit on the low side. I'll be saying this several times during the presentation, but we feel this the year in 2023 represents close to a worst case scenario. So we fully expect to have our fiscal situation improve when our final numbers come in. But, you know, for instance, what is Mother Nature going to do? We know there's no snow in the forecast now. That could quickly change, as you know, living in Michigan all my life, that can change daily, right? So what is Mother Nature going to do? What will happen with the Michigan transportation funds? It's been a bit of a roller coaster, very hard to budget for. You know, we have a conservative number, what we think it'll be, but typically we'll come in a little bit higher, which again, that's kind of where you want. You want to underestimate your revenues and overestimate your expenditures, not 20%, but I always shoot for about 5% from a budget to an actual number. And that way, I think you know, it looks like you know what you're doing. And if it's more than a 5% change from that, then hopefully there's an explanation as to why. You know, for instance, Michigan Transportation Funds had a couple of really good months that we weren't necessarily anticipating, wouldn't be appropriate to anticipate. So now, you know, instead of 5% off, it's 8%. That's just one example. But anyway, so we'll get into the rest unless there's any questions about where we think we're going to end up in 2023. Okay. We'll talk projects. So I mentioned carryovers. We have some projects there. Our Plymouth Road CMAQ project, countywide traffic signal interconnect in Ellsworth at Oak Valley were a few projects we wanted to highlight. For various reasons will be carried over into 2024. We fully expect to do those in 2024, but at this time, we need to take that out of the budget for 2023. Question?
Commissioner Green.
Please pardon my ignorance, but what's the CMAQ stand for?
Congestion mitigation. Oh my gosh.
Air quality.
Air quality.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. I should know that. I've handled several projects, but yes. Any other questions on this slide at all?
So just to be clear, Dan, these carryovers contribute to the adjustment that allows us to show 626,000.
Correct. So you would have to look at the road commission's contribution. And if there's a road commission contribution, because the federal aid is kind of like a pass-through, we show a revenue and a corresponding expenditure. But if there's a road commission portion, for instance, a lot of our projects are 80-20, meaning 80% is funded with federal and state dollars, 20% would be the road commission's responsibility. So that 20%, or bridges are 95-5. So that road commission contribution then would be a carryover of fund balance, if you will, into next year. Yeah, good question.
Commissioner Green, I'm sorry.
Thank you. The CMAQ money comes from the feds?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep. And our engineering department is very successful with finding CMAQ dollars. So,
thank
you. Any other questions on this slide? Okay. Couple other projects, Ford Boulevard at Russell Street and our Huron River Drive border to border segment D3. Now the Huron River Drive segment D3, there's a significant amount of work done this year. It's just we thought maybe more of it would be accomplished in 2023, and you know, various factors come into play, as you know, And so about 2.2 million will be carried over into 2024. Any questions on this slide? Okay, let's talk equipment. We're still seeing some supply chain issues, unfortunately, with our road equipment. So the good news is for our 8 heavy trucks, we expect the cab and chassis to be done in 2023. So done and paid for, but the upfitting, unfortunately, will be pushed into 2024. So that's about $1.76 million. So I guess I'm encouraged that there has been some progress with this, and the fact that at least a portion of it's being done this year means that we can expect them fairly soon. First quarter, or so hopefully in the first quarter we'll have those 8 heavy trucks and have them ready to go. But you know, obviously the board, you're familiar with some of the challenges with you know, purchasing road equipment and delivery of the road equipment. But any questions on that at all?
So it's about a little over $200,000 per truck. The upfitting, did I
Yes.
do the math right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, and does MDOT help on these trucks at all?
In what way?
Typically anything used on the trunk line, we get
Correct.
some, I
So
don't know whether it's
that-
called depreciation
Right,
or.
that's been the practice of this agency. Any new trucks are deployed on the state trunk line.
Mhm.
And when the state comes in and audits us each year, we have this huge report that we provide them. But one of it is the trucks are depreciated over 5 years. And MDOT does share in a share of the depreciation based on utilization on the trunk line. So if it's 90% of the time, then 90% of the depreciation would be shared in that audit adjustment. And I believe that is still our strategy, correct?
Yes.
These trucks, though, are particularly, may not all go to state trunk line, so they might go to the outside yard, so you may not see that advantage, but that is the practice for our current trucks, which are fairly new, and they aren't fully depreciated yet. So we do get reimbursement, and that's a very good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, any other questions on this slide?
Why are the backhoes getting more expensive? Do we know? Is there anything in particular? We now have leather
I don't
seats
know.
versus pleather, or, I mean, I realize it's only 100,000 and change, but.
Good morning, Adam Lape, Director of Operations. Yeah, unfortunately, everything has increased over the last 6-8 years. It's the same unit we purchased 10 years ago. Exact same, unfortunately, just newer.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're seeing that across the board. Everything we've bought, even graders, for example, loaders, they've all increased, you know, 50, 60, 80, $100,000.
Just like milk. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Total increase for 2 units.
For what?
2 units. That's the total increase.
Correct.
2 units.
Yeah, that's spread. So $54,000 increase for each unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And, you know, we've kind of seen that steel prices have been high and, you know, various materials that go into the equipment. Unfortunately, the inflation's been kind of crazy with some of that. So, you know, sadly, we are seeing some increases for that. Okay. Any other questions on this slide? Okay, so some other carryovers, Dusty Yard, our material storage, we're carrying that over to next year. There's some HVAC improvements that we would like to do, but couldn't get to it really this year, so that'll be carried into next year. And the good news is, from the second quarter, the numbers for the Yard 1 salt barn, and I don't know if you've seen the progress, been some great progress on that. We were able to decrease that by about $800,000 after the bids came in and so on. So certainly glad to see that. But I believe the goal is to have a majority of it completed this year, the salt barn, so which is great. Any questions on this slide?
So if I did my math right, carryovers are over $7 million. I added up all the deferrals and carryovers.
So I would have to look at that. So again, if you're taking the projects at the full dollar amount, we would just have to see the portion that's related to the road commission costs. So I think it's lower than your calculations, and I can get that to you if you'd like.
The reason I'm asking all of these questions, Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
is because of some inaccurate numbers that have been circulating regarding money that we have that appears not to be being spent. So I'm being very careful about going on the record about what these numbers mean. No criticism intended, so please don't take it that way.
Inaccurate numbers coming from
There was a white paper issued.
finance or?
No,
Okay.
white paper issued
Okay.
by county administrator.
Okay,
And I'm just being
Okay.
very protective of the information and making sure that it's explained clearly.
yes.
And that when we talk about adding money back in on the revenue side, it isn't because we've had stuff fall out of the sky
Okay.
in our laps.
Okay.
So just
Yeah.
context.
And certainly if it's something coming from finance, I would like to know, because I also take that very seriously,
Sure.
as you know.
I
So
do.
if there's something that's coming from our agency that is incorrect or misleading, certainly I would like to know that.
It
for
didn't
sure.
come from this agency.
Yeah,
It's my
yeah, okay.
understanding
No.
it came from the treasurer's,
Ju-
county treasurer.
Just a statement. So,
Understood.
yeah. Okay.
I think we understand
Yes,
each
yep.
other. All
And,
right.
yeah,
Chair, just for the board, we're presenting a summary of the more significant changes,
Mhm.
but the full context of all the changes and all the dollars and cents is in the budget document.
Understood.
Yep. okay.
Understood. And the
Right.
budget document is an incredibly detailed document. It's come a long way in the last several years.
Right.
It's a wonderful document.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how many people will dive into it, but I
Yep.
do know it's there, and I would be hopeful that perhaps our two liaisons to the Board of Commissioners would take some time to
Sure.
peruse it, or
Yep.
at least be aware of its existence.
yeah, and to Matt's point, we're gonna talk about some other
Mhm.
non-carryover changes that, when we look at everything, that bottom line is that increase. But there, as Matt said, there's quite a few things that comprise those numbers.
Well, increase meaning that we're still deficit spending. We're not deficit spending by the same amount that that we predicted for Q2.
Yes, yeah,
Understood.
okay.
Commissioner Green.
And as I understand, the carryover item is an accounting item, right? I mean, the carryover just represents money that's going to be spent that has not been spent yet.
Yeah, so again, it is the bottom line of all the changes.
Right.
But as you
It's
can
not-
see, there's a lot of
It's
things.
not extra money.
There's a lot of things from 2023 that we're moving to 2024, and we need to make sure we have the funds to do those projects, to purchase that equipment and so on. Mhm. Yes, okay. All right, any other questions on this slide? So here, again, getting back to some of the other changes for 2023 are the revenues. Michigan Transportation Funds, we are expecting a slight increase, and again, hopefully it'll be more than what we're adding, which is $250,000 to our budget. But we don't know. And we've been doing this long enough. We want to be somewhat conservative and hopefully get a pleasant surprise. But, how much are people going to drive in the next few months? We're not sure relative to the previous year. So we do the best we can, given the estimates we received from the state of Michigan and the history that we have and so on. But we are proposing to increase that budget for Michigan Transportation Funds by $250,000. And similar to, we had just talked about some of the carryovers for the projects, federal and state aid revenue. There would be a decrease in some of that, again, carried over into 2024. And a corresponding decrease in expenditures that we talked about in the previous slides.
And in your budgeting, do I remember reading correctly that the last actual MTF payment we received from the state came in March, or as a reflection of March of this year?
So yeah, there's a timing issue.
Mm-hmm.
So the December receipts are not received until, I believe it's February, isn't it?
Right, so the last time you reported though, Dan, wasn't it September?
The last time we,
TF receipts?
yes, right.
that were a reflection not of September. They were a reflection.
Of September, they were reported
They were,
earlier.
yeah, I think they were probably August receipts is probably the last that
Okay.
we covered with the board, right?
Again, there's a lag time there I want to be clear about.
There's a lag time, but because it relates to 2023, even if it's received in February, we still need to attribute it back to the previous budget year. And that's an accounting thing.
Understood. Thank you.
Right. So again, we already talked about here in River Drive, board and border segment D3. So we have about $1 million that's coming from the county parks, and that is a carryover into next year. Township contributions, Adam and his team have done an outstanding job partnering with our townships. And we are proposing to increase that yet again from, we increased it in the second quarter, the nature of the program. And we're going to increase it again by about $500,000. So I believe it's about $6.5 million is the total program. And actually that's just from the townships. That's the revenue side. It's actually the total program with the road commission's portions over $8 million. So over $8 million, we're partnering with the townships to improve the local roads, which is great. We also are expecting a little bit higher revenues from Pittsfield Township. They're reimbursing us for all of our costs on the Platte Road Greenway, phase 2. So we want to make sure we adjust that. And then a lot of these, you'll have a corresponding increase in the expenditures. Any questions? And we kind of already talked about this a little bit. Contractual services where a lot of those project costs that we're carrying over will show up. So we're going to decrease that reimbursable road project department. Non-departmental, if you recall, we did receive a McChrysip liability insurance pool refund. So, so our liability insurance categories in non-departmental will be a little bit lower, which is great. And, you know, last several years, we received a nice refund from them, which is awesome. Workers' compensation costs are lower. We kind of talked about that a little bit. Our experience modification factor or mod factor continues to be lower. Was it 0.69, I think? I forgot what it was, but it's under 1. Mm-hmm. If you recall, 1 means our workers' compensation experience is similar to other road commissions. Above that, you're paying a premium. Below that, you're getting a discount. And I want to say it was like about 0.7-ish.
It was around in there, yeah.
So we were receiving a discount for our workers' compensation payments that we make. And so we were able to decrease our workers' comp budget for that.
And we've been trending under 1 for 2 years now, 3 years?
At least.
I'd say at least 3 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to whoever's making that happen.
Kudos to Human Resources and Craig Timmis and, you know, all the things that we're doing is really having an impact. So hopefully that trend will continue and we can continue to pay a little bit less for workers' compensation. And ultimately, too, that means our workforce is safer, too.
Right.
So.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Green.
No. And I'm assuming that's a direct, and that is a direct result of our safety efforts.
Yeah, I would say that's a huge contributor to that. You know, I think we're changing a culture and a mindset here. And, you know, if everybody before their actions, they're thinking safety first, then obviously that's really going to help matters. And we have monthly safety topics that we go over with supervisors and the entire organization. So just a lot of things that we're doing, I think it's really contributing to it.
Thank you. That's a great job.
Yeah, it is.
Also really credit to our crews, the employees with that mindset. So it's really kudos to our crews.
Yes, thank you, for sure. So we already kind of discussed the equipment here. So we're looking forward to getting those 8 heavy trucks, and we do have more for next year as well, and we'll talk about that. But you know, again, paying for the cab and chassis means we're getting closer to having those being delivered, which is great. Any other questions on 2023 year end?
Commissioner Smers.
I just have a question on the trucks and the upfitting. So the 200,000, you're looking at beds and plows and, okay. The bed and everything is included in that. It's, you know, you're basically buying cabs and chassis and yeah.
Yeah, so Adam Lake, Director of Operations again. Yeah, Jeff, so everything that 220 is basically cab and chassis up. So the beds, the plows, you know, all the hydraulics, the pumps, everything we put on the truck, the tanks that we add to them. So literally everything from the frame up. So we buy them as a truck. So they deliver as a truck, just as if they were going to turn into like an over the road truck. And then we send them to our vendor to have them truly upfitted with all their other pieces and parts. And we do have all the material is up at our Truck and Trailer is the name of the company that we use. Our vendor, those have actually been waiting on us for a while. We just haven't had trucks to mount them to. So when they all come in, we'll put the batch of 8 of them up there so they can work at a bunch of them together. Goal is to have a uniform product when we're done, as opposed to just one, then just one, then just one. So we bunch them together so they can work them all in the shop at the same time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
Managing Director Siddle.
Just to follow up, in your board packet from November 7th, there was our last receipts from MDOT for our MTF. And we, as of September, we were at $26.9 million. So Dan does a nice projection there, and that's where we're expecting to end at 35.25, I believe is what the final projection is. Yep.
Okay. I have are we going to go through this big document or only if we have questions?
So, right. So the PowerPoint kind of takes that huge
Okay.
document and consolidates it into what we feel are the highlights to share with the board, but we certainly can talk about the document itself if you have questions.
I have a few questions. On page 8 of the 2023 annual budget report, it talks about the trunk line maintenance revenues were $150,000 lower. Which I guess is a good thing because that means winter was kinder to us at that point in time.
So you said page 8?
Yes. Just above Q1 update.
Yep.
See, that's trunk line.
Yep. So basically we're just projecting November and December using our historical costs, and the costs we're anticipating for winter would put it slightly below what we're budgeting right now.
Okay. And as I understand it, our crews that are on the trunk line crews, when they're not needed for winter maintenance or other guardrails that went fluey and potholes, we have other work for them.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Oh yeah,
okay.
For sure.
Fair. Just for your note, so that yes, that's all right. Q2, the update, that was the update from in July. So what's highlighted in orange is what's changed since July. So just for formatting's sake, we try and highlight what we're updating in year end, and you can see the budget revenue of 3.4 million is tracking very nicely with our anticipated revenue, so 3.4. So we're really tracking right on for the state trunk line maintenance revenue.
Yeah, we probably could even said that it was about as budgeted, would be, you know, slightly lower or about as budgeted. For that.
Yeah, I've noticed that throughout the document. That
Yes.
budgeted.
Yeah, it's
so nice
right.
job. Nice job.
Mm-hmm.
On page 10, talked about the Huron River Drive section on the border of Dexter and Webster Townships, that we pulled that forward. And I remember when that happened, I just want to point out that we advanced that project in this year.
Right.
We do that not very often, right? That was just a particular request.
Has to be like a perfect situation, I think. So.
Well, that was our observation, right? We had the road closed, and that was in order to get the road back open because of the surface condition of that roadway.
I remember.
Yes. Which is another reason to have a fund balance, even though much of our fund balance is
Yes.
spoken for. That does give us flexibility to be able to make that kind of decision if we need to. Otherwise, that road would have remained potentially closed.
And that was budgeted in the subsequent year, but we pulled it forward and spent the money and did the work.
Right. We were able to front the expenses and
Yeah.
reimburse ourselves through the millage.
Right.
When it was programmed.
Where's the pipeline project that's referred to on page 11, the consumers pipeline project? Remind me, please, where that is?
Chair, the pipeline, the revenues were received this year as their contribution for impacts to the infrastructure.
Mhm.
The majority of the projects that we're going to accomplish with that revenue is going to be in 24. So you're going to see all those projects listed in the 24 budget, although we're recognizing the revenue kind of as a liability that we're going to spend next year.
And that's a condition of permit, right? Is where those dollars come
The
from?
road improvement agreement was in coordination with the permitting of the work. Absolutely.
Okay. Where is it?
The money received,
No, where's the
Linden and
project?
Sylvan,
I'm sorry?
Linden and Sylvan townships.
I'd be happy to review that when we go
Wow,
over
that
the.
looks like it's already been done.
So the bulk of the work related to the pipeline, they were putting things back together if they were doing a road crossing. So those crossings would look improved. The impacts that we received money for to spend next year were all the related trucking activities and impacts to our overall local road and some of our primary systems.
Okay.
So that's how those projects you'll see in 24 will mainly be on a lot of our local roads. So there was an impact to all that
okay.
trucking
Yep.
and related construction activities. The work for the crossings particularly would have been accomplished under the permit, and that all work did take place this year. But we're going to follow that up next year to improve some of the local roads that were impacted by all the activities,
And
not necessarily at the crossing.
do I remember correctly that Mark McCullough was very successful in negotiating the
Instrumental.
terms with
Absolutely.
consumers on those points?
Yes.
I didn't do the math, Dan, but
Yep.
can you tell me percentage wise? Trying to find my note here on it. I looked at all of the percentages by category, and I noticed that in neither the 23 or 24 documents, there's a percentage for capital improvements or trunk line, and that represents about 20%.
Okay.
So is there a reason
Yeah,
why that wasn't stated?
No, I
or-
think we just followed what we did from the previous year, so maybe that was an oversight that we can correct. when
I'm
we-
just curious. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
not losing sleep over.
Yeah, no, that is something that we can add to the document we provide to the board in the first meeting in December. So you said capital outlay?
Capital improvements and trunk line expenditures.
Okay.
There was no percentage attributed to those for 23 or 24.
Okay. That's just an oversight on my part, and
Okay.
I'll correct that.
We just recently, within the last year, started breaking that out from reimbursement.
That's true. That's probably why. Yep, that's an excellent point.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just something that, yeah, we broke that out, but we didn't add to the narrative what percentage of the overall budget it is. So, but we'll correct that.
Okay.
Yep.
Because there's some shifts. They're not major, but there were some
Sure.
shifts between
Yep.
this year and next year. Jeff?
I don't really have a question, more of a statement, just to bring up something from the previous meeting.
Mhm.
Go back on the pipeline money.
Mhm.
We had talked about it, Cheryl, Matt, Adam, some of the damage to like North Territorial Road and things like that. They're aware of it. It's going to be taken in 2024. We talked about it many meetings ago, and because we were talking about that, I just wanted to put that back on this meeting.
As a reminder, that's great. Does anyone else have any questions or things they want to point out from this fabulous document?
Yeah.
I just continue to be impressed. I found it very helpful.
Good. That was definitely the goal. So
Mission
make
accomplished
it
on that
user
one, Dan.
friendly for anybody that is curious about the road commission's budget.
All right.
Any other questions on 2023, either my presentation or the report itself?
I don't see any.
And I believe we have a break scheduled. Should we
Yes.
just move ahead, or is
What's
everybody
your
want a
pleasure,
break?
people? You want to stretch for 5 minutes? Everybody seems to be pretty comfortable, Dan. Let's just roll. if you're okay with that.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Managing directors, are we good with it?
Moving nicely along.
Yes.
All are good.
Well, and
We'll
it's
skip the
it's a
break
tribute
slide.
to the information and how it was presented
Sure.
too. I want,
Yeah.
I know it's a huge amount of work, and I know all of you, including Tiffany and Aaron and everybody, were making it happen by the end of the day on Friday.
Right.
So.
Yes, we were.
And probably many days before.
Always nice to get to the finish line on that. All right. So we'll move on to 2024. Again, cutting to the chase. So we feel our financial position for 2024 is stable. You know, if you ask someone like myself, would I like our fund balance to be double as far as the projection? Yes, but also we need to invest in roads and equipment and facilities and our people. So, you know, certainly we try to look at all these competing interests and do the best we can with that. So our initial budget, we have deficit spending of about $4.2 million. And that would leave us with a projected fund balance in 2024 of about 10.5 million. Which is about 11% of expenditures. Again, I mentioned it once. We feel this represents a worst case scenario. I fully expect our 2023 year-end numbers to come in slightly better. We don't know what winter will do. If winter is mild, then obviously that will just help our fiscal position. And in the first quarter, hopefully some of these projects and things that we currently feel are unfunded based on our fund balance projections, we can restore some of those, hopefully. And that's been the pattern of this agency for several years now. So any questions on this slide?
When you get a chance, I'd like to see how our fund balance percentage has trended beginning in 2020. I mean, it's 11% for next year projected, 16% projected for this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a question I always ask, Mr. Ackerman. So I just want to make sure we're paying attention to that trend.
Yep.
And where's the floor?
Right.
So,
Commissioner Fuller, these numbers actually projected for 2024 are eerily similar to what they were projected for 2023.
okay.
The initial budget.
As 1.1 data point. So certainly if you want further back, we can pull those numbers. But as we were going through this, I'm actually like, oh, we need to update the slides. And then I realized, oh, no, we don't. They're actually almost identical to what they were a year ago. Right.
But I'd like to know where we landed each year.
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Green.
Yes. Given that Plant Moran recommends a range of 15 to 25%, is that going to be something that's going to be a red flag for us when they do their analysis?
I don't think so. So again, we feel this represents close to a worst case scenario. Our history has been in the first quarter, we've been able to add things back, and we've ended up in a better fiscal position. Plant Moran has not stated any concerns they have. They realize sometimes those targets can't be hit for several reasons, and they've never expressed a concern that our fund balance is too low. From a cash flow standpoint, you know, we have no issues with that at all. You know, if you have cash flow concerns, for instance, oh geez, we're going to be able to pay all of our vendors for the next pay. If you have concerns like that, and we're not anywhere close to that. So they've never expressed any concerns that, hey, your fund balance is too low. And, you know, it should be at a higher, they would like it to be at a higher level, but they're also realists too. So we've never had any cash flow issues or issues with, you know, being able to pay for anything. So.
Good question though.
Sure.
Mr. McDonnell.
Yes, just as a follow-up, as Cheryl mentioned, that target of 10 million was what we started with last year, and that's where staff really feels very comfortable with. That percentage is always going to fluctuate a little bit, and that's really looking at our federal funds each year, depending on how much money is flowing through this agency. This next year, it looks to be $13 million, which is a really good amount of federal and state aid that's flowing through our financial books. But we really, those go directly into projects. So that percentage of expenditures is going to fluctuate, but that $10 million, I think, is really what we as staff are really targeting, that we feel is very a conservative start for our budgets for, we'll call it the floor for our fund balance. And really keep in mind, our fund balance is for unexpected expenditures like in years past Grove Road, or if we had a major equipment issue and we need to do rentals, or a Tyler Road, you know, really big things that may come at us that are unexpected and unplanned. $10 million to me is a good place to be. Years ago, we're talking decade or so, that used to be 4 million. That was kind of our organizational floor. We've raised that floor, and we are taking, as our board, through direction from you, a balanced approach and a conservative approach to this budgeting. And we expect to do better, right? That's what really Dan's overall, very conservative in nature. And ultimately that 23 budget, if it comes and turns out better, that's our hope. And that's why we revisit this process quarterly,
right?
Because it's a snapshot in time.
Right. I just anticipate some unexpected, I won't call them disasters, but we're seeing trends in climate conditions that we've never had to anticipate before.
Sure.
So I want to watch that closely.
Right. And certainly anything that those unexpected emergencies we had, Grove Road being one example, we've been able to address because of the nature of our budgeting. So
right, there was a Dexter tornado, there's a Tyler Road mess. So
we never had to say, oh, we don't have any money, we can't address that. We've been able to handle those. And I feel like we would continue to do so.
Okay.
Now, if there's 10 natural disasters, I don't know, but you know, we've been able to, as a course of business, be able to address things that are unexpected.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions on this slide? Michigan Transportation Funds. So the last time the state of Michigan provided any estimates was this past February. So a little disappointing that they haven't updated those numbers.
That's where the February came from. Okay.
So their Office of Management and Budget periodically looks at these. I'm not sure exactly how or when, but the most recent estimate we received is it's supposed to be about 36 million for us in 2024. So our budget, just to remind you, for 2023, we're anticipating 35,250. So a little bit of an increase. Will it be 36 or 36.5? I mean, we don't know at this point, but I think 36 million is a good number. Certainly if the state of Michigan updates their budget numbers, we would definitely look closely at what we're using and then also share that information with the board as well. And I think they're due to have an update. I'm not sure why they haven't looked at it.
Yes, it'll typically in December, at least when I looked, it was December of last year. The gas tax is now indexed to inflation. So last December, they made the decision and they increased the gas tax to 28.6, I believe is where it's at right now. That's maximum of 5% increase, which is under law. So we have not seen yet that number. So I don't know, Dan, if they'll give us revised MTF estimates at that point in time when they determine what the gas tax will be set at for next year. But back in 2015, that legislation that was passed did allow for it to be indexed to inflation.
Thanks for the reminder.
And of course, we've had the discussion here about electric vehicles, which are great. What impact will they have in the next 5, 10, 20 years? We don't know. Obviously, we'll monitor that. I know the state is trying at least to look at funding mechanisms and possibly changing that, but that seems to be like a slow process as well. But as of now, we feel pretty good about these increases that we're including in the budgets. And you know, if whatever changes at the state level, then we're monitoring all that and we would adjust accordingly and obviously communicate that with the board.
Do you have a cough drop?
Yep, that's
okay. I do too. If anyone needs to. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions on Michigan Transportation Funds?
Chair. Commissioner McCollum.
Sorry.
So Dan, you said that we're going from 35
250
million 250 to 36 million. Okay.
Yep, 35,250 year end 2023. And we're projecting in 2024 at Michigan Transportation Funds to be 36 million.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that? Certainly is obviously very important to us. Also with revenues, so if you recall, 2023 was the first year for our federal aid buyout program. And we're expecting $1.9 million for those various projects in 2024, which is great. Some of the things we talked about that were carryovers, the countywide traffic signal interconnect, there it is for 2024, and the CMAC project, and also the North Territorial Dexter Town Hall Road is about $1.5 million in federal aid that we're expecting in 2024. Of course, we have a project listing for you towards the back there of all the primary roads, the major primary road projects and local roads. And thank you, Brent, for all your hard work with updating that. It's definitely a huge, heavy lift. Lots of discussions with the leadership team as far as what projects are we doing next year. So, and in that, Commissioner Fuller is the pipeline projects.
Okay.
And if you want, we would be more than happy to go over which ones are related to the pipeline project if you'd like. Okay. But that's in, I think, primarily the local roads, Matt, is that right? Local road 2024. Any questions on this slide?
I don't see any.
Okay. Township contributions. So again, we have a nice history of robust township agreement programs with our townships each year. But what we usually do conservatively is go back to more traditional levels, which is a $2 million road commission contribution and a $2 million township contribution. So $4 million. As I shared with you about 2023, that was closer to 8 million. Once Adam and his team met with all the townships and we went over all the projects that we were doing. So, but conservatively, we go back to a more traditional level. And in the second quarter of 2024, we would adjust that because we would have all the agreements in and we would know what the levels would be at that point.
And what month will that be again, please?
I'm sorry?
The agreements in place you anticipate?
The township agreements we anticipate would be in place prior to our second quarter budget adjustments.
So
July.
July
is when we would cover that with the board. So
Ms. Siddle.
If I can just build on what Dan was saying. So for the local road program, for the budget for 2024, right now, we're just assuming that it will be equally matched because it is a matching program that we're setting up. And then as agreements come in, we'll increase, hopefully, which has been the trend, that number for you, usually as part of the second quarter budget adjustments. However, the actual program itself is proposed to increase. So the funds that would be available for matching the proposal in the budget for 2024 is to increase that from 1.5 million to 2 million. So that is a $500,000 increase that this organization is putting into that matching program to make available for townships. It'll go through formula just like it has in the past, but that is an increase that will be made available for the townships on the local roads.
And if I remember correctly, we combined drainage dollars with that match in 22.
That is correct. In 2022, I believe it was that we simplified the program, and instead of having a road program and a drainage program, and it was pretty complicated, we eliminated that, combined it. Essentially, everybody ended up winning when all is said and done. But we simplified it. So it's going through the formula pretty much based in the way that we receive it. So how we receive our local MTF is how we're distributing it out to the townships.
And we started with $500,000, right?
Long time ago.
Yeah, that was, that's probably a decade or two.
Yeah.
Really, that long?
I mean, we've been slowly increasing it.
Yeah.
You know, it was at 700 for a while, and it went to 800 and then to $1 million. So,
right.
We've been increasing it slowly as we've been going along, recognizing the fact that the local road system, we're slowly chipping away at primary. I'm not going to say we're in great shape, but we're slowly making progress on the primary road system. A lot of that is due to the millage because of the fact
Right.
that we've been investing those millage dollars into the primary road system. But what continues to fall behind is the local road system. And so that's where we're trying to put additional monies available. Right now, we're just going to assume it's matched dollar for dollar. So 2 million of MTF that this board would be putting in and then matched by the townships. Right. And then as those agreements come in, that's all at township contribution levels. So that would all be township revenue that would be coming in.
Again, when you have a chance, if you could identify when we started making that shift, putting the dollars towards the local roads and what the trend was, what's the progression, when did we start it, and how did it increase over time by year?
Commissioner Fuller, you're saying the road commission's contributions to the township agreement matching program?
Yeah.
Going back to how far?
When did we,
Oh, it's been around for, I mean, decades.
As long as I've been here.
Yeah. Yes, the program itself has been around for a very long time.
I don't
do at least the last
I
five.
just remember that since I've been on the board, that $500,000 was a deliberate action of the board, and I didn't realize it had been going on. We'd been putting money towards it longer than that. Okay, so maybe since 2020.
Okay,
if that's not too much work, don't make it can even be after the audit, Dan, because I know that's the next monster at your doorstep.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks.
No problem.
Commissioner McCollum.
I may be skipping ahead here, but under revenues, you have 1 million for ARPA for culvert projects.
So
and then somewhere else you have 1.5 million. Okay.
Yeah, right. So the total program is $1.5 million for the ARPA culvert projects. The townships are contributing $1 million, and then the road commission would be contributing 500,000 to that.
500. Okay.
Yes, for the 1.5. Okay. Correct.
And that comes out of there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right. No, I just was wondering, since it's under ARPA, what is ours saying? How can we contribute under ARPA?
Sure.
Yes.
Mr. McDonough.
Yes. So we reported that the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner Office established a grant program with their ARPA dollars. So the County Board of Commissioners granted them, I think it was $2 million. The first round of those grants are being reflected in the 24 budget. Once the townships were successful at the grant from the Water Resources Office, we then entered into agreements. Many of the agreements came to this board to contribute half of the township's costs. So they applied for half of the construction costs through the grant, which left another half. Say if it was a $100,000 culvert, 50,000 of it would be through the ARPA grant program through the Water Resource Commissioner's Office. And then through our local road program, this board has agreed to match any culvert project 50-50. So then we took the remaining 50,000 and split it between the township and road commission. So if for a $100,000 culvert, 75 would be on the township, 50 of it would be given reimbursed through their grant, and 25,000 would come from the road commission. So that's where, when you total all those culvert projects and agreements up, which are listed in the local road sheet, that's where Dan comes up with $1 million is coming from the township. Half of that, assumingly, would be reimbursed by the Water Resource Office, and then we would be responsible for that 500,000.
So is all of it ARPA? Sounds like it's not. Sounds like
no, it is not. No.
So, but it's called the ARPA.
We've labeled it that.
Oh, okay.
Just to
distinguish from other funded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we also have other culvert projects that are just the traditional 50-50. Township pays half, we pay half for local roads. It's a primary road, that's all on us. So we're really just talking local road culverts.
Okay. I got it.
All right. Very good.
And Commissioner McCollum, when we're looking at the history of our budgets, we'll see 2024. Wow, 1.5 million in culvert work. What was going on? Oh, it was because of the ARPA funds. So I think that kind of helps us when we're looking at things historically and so on, that we can, okay, there was a funding source that caused this huge increase with the culvert projects.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned, the budget will be adjusted second quarter once we have all the township in July, once we receive all the township agreements. And, you know, I fully expect us to be able to increase the numbers for that as well. So the county road millage, we're expecting about $4.5 million in 2024. Definitely wanted to point out this is the last year of the 4-year millage. And I know staff is working really hard as far as getting another one on the ballot. And, you know, will $4.5 million solve all of our problems? No, but it'll certainly help. And, you know, I think it's been a very, very successful program. And we've been able to improve a lot of roads with the millage money over the years. So I'm certainly hopeful that that we and the county commission will be successful in you know, getting another millage on the ballot. And again, conservatively, obviously in 2024, we do not, or going forward, sorry, for 2025, right, going forward, we will not have the millage on there until something has actually been approved. Any questions on that at all? I know there's been a lot of discussion on
that. Bears worth repeating, right? That in 2025, we're not assuming any road millage infusion at all.
Right. Definitely, I think it would be premature to do that until it was actually on the ballot and approved, and then we could include it.
Agreed.
In our planning for the out years. We also will be continuing our partnership with Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation. They're going to be contributing about $1.5 million to our border-to-border segments D3 and D4. So that continues to be a great initiative and nice partnership that we've had with county parks. Oops, sorry. I hit the wrong button. All right. So as far as miscellaneous income, I love technology. As far as miscellaneous income, right now we are anticipating installment purchases for 5 heavy trucks. So this is not the carryover of the 8 trucks. This is actually 5 more trucks that we're at least as of now planning on installment purchases. Again, that's where we look at where is our fund balance going to be. Can we pay cash? Do we need to finance those? And conservatively, we're going to have that we're financing those. Certainly if our numbers improve, maybe that's an area that we say, maybe we want to pay cash for that. Obviously interest rates haven't been great lately. So, and again, finance folks, we don't like to finance anything, but sometimes it's the nature of the beast and we have to, but that's something that we'll revisit in Q1 and Q2.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes. Dan, help me understand this. So this says miscellaneous income.
Right.
But then when you talk about installment purchase, that's really your spending money. We're
borrowing.
There's installment purchases the way, and this is more accounting. But so let's say you finance this for $1.9 million. That would be considered revenues to offset your expenditures, whatever the financing agreement is. And, you know, that's how we record it in our books. And it shows up under miscellaneous income when you're looking at the budget document itself. You should see that number in there.
And do we pay interest on the financing?
You would, yes. And that's why, especially the last couple of years, you know, we definitely have given a pause to our financing because the markets, you know, for a while we were getting under 2%, which is great. Our Northeast Service Center was under 2% interest rate, which we were very proud of. But now we're seeing it trending up to 3-4%, maybe 5%. So that's why we're, you know, definitely, you know, giving it a lot of thought as far as do we want to go out for financing or not.
So Commissioner McCollum, essentially what that is, with that 1.9 million in revenue is the money that the bank gives us to pay for the trucks.
Okay.
Then we have an offsetting expenditure with the debt service, and then that's where we're starting to pay it back. And over the years, we have financed, and Dan has a whole list of the different. installment purchases that was made, whether it's been for facilities or whether it's been for equipment over the years. And we actually have paid off a certain amount of equipment at this point. So for next year, again, that'll be a decision. Right now, we're assuming that we will finance, but that can always be revisited when the time actually comes. Are we comfortable? But we should have the ability to incur that additional debt for those 5 trucks if needed.
Just to follow up on that, if you look at it in Appendix E of the budget document, you'll see the debt service listed, and this has been practiced for some time. You can see the various equipment listed and what year we're financing. So that's really where that will end up. If we end up borrowing and financing those heavy truck purchases, then the corresponding year you'll see it listed in the line item expenditures for debt service in Appendix E.
I was just wondering, okay, it's 1.9 million, and then to borrow and then paying interest. So how much does it end up costing?
Yeah, certainly it depends on what interest rate you're getting. And again, with interest rates being higher, we definitely have thought twice. Can we justify paying more, maybe even higher percentage of cash or the whole thing because of not wanting to pay 3 to 5% on $1.9 million? And the other thing I wanted to point out too, so Appendix E that Matt pointed out, so this is all of the installment purchases that remain for this agency. And you can see we're anticipating in 2023 about $1.2 million. You know, out of a $70 million budget, $1.2 million is quite low. You know, they talk about debt to equity ratios, and ours is quite low, which I'm proud of. And, you know, I feel like that's been our history. There was a while we were financing 5 trucks a year. And so our debt to equity ratio may have been ticking up a little bit, but then the markets were, you know, we were getting good interest rates. So it kind of made sense. But even so, you can see in 2024, including our, the salt shed here, it's $1.7 million in 2024, which is still quite low. Again, given an agency with the size of budget that we have. So I think the installment purchases for next year, a lot of it will be how we come out in 2023. What is winter like? And then what are the markets like too? You know, do we think we can get close to 2% or is it gonna be close to 5%? And so we will really give that some serious thought as far as, do we want to finance those or do we want to pay cash, or maybe we only finance a couple? Again, it's all these competing interests, right? You know, where's our fund balance going to be and how much can we justify paying in interest costs?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because 1.9, that could come out of the fund balance, and you're not paying the extra interest. But then,
right,
you know, I'm sure you all look at it and say, well, it's better to finance for whatever reason.
Yes.
Well, it's really also that fund balance, that where's that floor at? So right now, as we started this presentation off, we're at $10 million. That's kind of our floor. If we elected to not finance these trucks, we'd be at $8 million. So our percentage of expenditures would go down even lower. So that's where we're trying to balance this out, see where we come out of 23, because we don't have to make the decision on financing trucks until the trucks arrive. That's the good news. So we have time, and we have the first quarter and the second quarter to revisit this topic and see where our fund balance is, see where we're at with projects and other things, how Mother Nature treated us over the winter. And then fortunately, we've had the good fortune of being able to pay mostly cash for a lot of heavy trucks of recent. These recent heavy trucks, the 8, we're not anticipating financing at all.
Okay. I think you got me when you said the fund balance would go below 10.
Right.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right.
Okay,
And that was a discussion we had as the leadership team. All right, how are we going to present this to the board for these 5 heavy trucks? Conservatively, we're saying finance, but that could change.
Thanks.
Good discussion. Thank you.
And do we not have a so-called asset management plan for our fleet that we try to do so much every year.
Right.
And I think it got scaled back at some point. I'm struggling to find it in the document.
I don't know if it was scaled back or just there were issues with the suppliers. You know, it was taking, instead of, 6 months to get a truck, it was taking,
18.
1-2 years. So I think that's some of the main challenges we've been experiencing with that these days.
Okay.
The magic number is 5 heavy trucks a year.
Right.
But my point is, there's a decision that gets made for financial reasons about whether we do that or not, right?
Sure.
Commissioner Smers?
Originally, if I remember way back in June, it was talked about 13 trucks. And
Right.
then is this just kind of the getting back to that 13 trucks that were needed? I know cost went way above, and that's where they'd scale back. How many trucks is that?
We
Kind
had
of
a-
that,
we
that's
had
that part of
11.
that plan.
Right, we
Okay.
had 11 at one point, had been the intent. And then we had to scale back just because of the increase in the cost of each truck to 8. Those are the internationals that we have received or will be receiving the pattern chassis still yet this year, and we'll be going up to truck and trailer for upfitting. What's proposed for 24 is an additional 5 trucks, like Matt said, to get back into that 5 trucks a year, because we have 50-ish trucks. So 10-year service life on a truck, just doing some real easy math because we prefer it that way.
Okay.
So, and
that gets back to the 5
trying to
trucks a
get
year
back
is
into this, right, exactly. And you'll see the same thing with graders and some of the other equipment as well.
Other questions?
Okay, good discussion, and certainly we don't take taking on any new debts lightly. It needs to make sense from a fund balance perspective, from a market perspective. We go through a lot of scenarios. We want to feel good about the fund balance that we present to the board, but also we need newer equipment, and there's a lot of reasons why you want your equipment functioning properly, the technology changes and everything else. So where's that mix? And then of course supplier issues we can't control, right? So
right.
Any other questions on that at all?
Commissioner Smers.
one statement
Oh,
from
sure.
experience to piggyback on what you said. I know from my experience with trucks, you either pay for new trucks or you pay for service, and at some point you're paying for both. So
Right.
It's
And
the new trucks are
downtime,
needed.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
downtime exactly costs you a lot more
Yeah,
money.
we have a service that we have to perform, and we need the equipment to function when we need it to perform that service at the end of the day.
Absolutely. All right. Going back to the presentation. We're also expecting about $400,000 in trade-ins and auction of equipment. So again, that can be used to offset some of the expenditures. And where that number will be, maybe we can adjust it in the first or second quarter, but it's a significant number, $400,000. So we just thought we'd mention it to the board. Expenditures. So when we budget the departments, meaning the operations, administration, and engineering departments, we include inflationary factors, of course, based on contracts, union contracts, and so on. We also assume a certain level of FTEs or full-time equivalents. As we've been sharing with the board throughout, well, probably forever, we are not quite at full capacity as far as, we've hired everybody where we have an FTE for, but we budget that way, of course. We're hopeful that we can get all the vacancies filled. And so, but through the course of the year, obviously vacancies occur for various reasons. And so your actual numbers might come in a little bit under your budget. But again, the board's approved so many full-time equivalent employees for each of those departments. And so the budgets are set accordingly. Any questions on that at all?
Madam
Commissioner
Chair.
McCollum.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the appendix. It starts like Appendix A starts with administration. Are you, and you're talking about operations, is that you talking about everything I have a question about administration.
Operations?
I have actually administration, but it came first before operations.
Okay. Yep, that's
Is that okay?
Appendix A. Mhm.
Yeah. So I just have a question about the depreciation of the buildings and office and furniture.
Sure.
What is the formula for that?
It's the straight life depreciation based on so the state and Act 51 kind of dictates we depreciate for 5 years, we depreciate for 8 years, some things are 50 years. Depending on the particular asset, and we've got listings of all of that. We just follow and we depreciate on a monthly basis, but we use the straight life depreciation method, again, based on the type of asset it is, then that's how we determine the number of years to depreciate that asset for.
But there's a straight life depreciation formula.
Right.
And how does the road commission benefit from this report, from the depreciation?
I'm not sure it's a benefit, more just we're required to report these things. Again, for Act 51 purposes, we have to report on, how much depreciation we incurred. You can see there's a corresponding credit. Again, that's an accounting thing. But I think also, in particular, when you look at your road equipment, if you look at depreciation and you see, wow, majority of our equipment has been fully depreciated, then that means, wow, our fleet's kind of getting old here, and maybe we should be investing some more. So I think there are other benefits to looking at your depreciation, just to see, how things are aging.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought we were getting some kind of credit or something.
Yeah, there's a corresponding credit. So you can see the depreciation starting at account 96802, 96807, and then 690. Those actually net to zero. And again, it's an Act 51 thing is how we have to show that.
Okay.
There is assistance from MDOT
For the road equipment.
for the road equipment that's used on the state trunk line.
Yeah, so MDOT does contribute in a portion of our depreciation cost for any vehicles that are driven on the state roads.
So I just have one more question.
Sure.
For Act 51, that seems like there's a lot involved in Act 51. Is this, is there an addendum to it, or, Act 51 Part B or something? So when I look it up, just go to it.
There's a public act that is, I don't know how many pages long.
There's an accounting manual for Act 51.
Yeah, there's also, probably a 500-page accounting manual that I'd be more than happy to share with you and go over questions. And I know you had some budgeting classes, so you may find it interesting.
Like reading.
But there are things that we have to follow in order to be in compliance with Act 51. And then you have the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, that we have to follow that too. So some of the things we do, either it's because of GASB requirements, it's because of Act 51 there's all sorts of things that dictate kind of how we have to account for things and report things.
Ms. Siddle.
If I may, Commissioner Fuller, this is a nice opportunity to highlight, first of all, how important it is to have a finance director who truly understands Act 51. Kudos to Dan in this particular case. He's obviously been doing it for a long time. He actually serves as a resource to a lot of other road commissions as they have new finance people coming into place, because he does have the familiarity that he does with Act 51. That is not easy to replicate. That takes a long time. And yes, there's accounting manuals and different resources that are out there, but just simply the experience that Dan brings to the table is huge. It also highlights the fact that it's not so easy for anybody to just step in. It doesn't matter what you might be doing. If you've been doing finance or accounting your entire life, this is not an easy role to step into. Act 51 is incredibly complicated, and I don't even begin to understand what all Dan does when it comes to that piece of it. And I've been working in this a long time myself as well.
Yep.
So I just wanted to highlight that it is a unique thing to road commissions.
Thank you.
I know on a number of occasions, Cheryl's like, well, why did you show it this way? Or why did you do that? Well, because of Act 51. She's like, okay. So there's just a lot of things that we have to do that are different. Road commission accounting is almost a mix of private sector and public sector. It's unlike anything I've seen and most of my peers have seen. So it definitely takes a little while to kind of get used to it, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this?
I had.
Go ahead.
What
are you on now?
page 15, 806.
What
Appendix B. And I was just curious about the laundry services.
Mm-hmm. What is your question?
Oh,
Whose laundry's getting done? It's not mine, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I believe that's for some of our shop folks that we have a service that
great.
does that for them. Mhm.
We do uniforms.
So they don't have to take the greasy stuff home and put it in the
exactly.
family
That's
washer.
awesome.
Yeah. Mhm.
That is awesome. I love that.
Okay.
Thank you. I was wondering, because I'm like, how
Yes.
many grease rags are they doing, you know, but if they're doing
Yeah.
uniforms, that's
Yep.
great.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm done.
Okay. On page 11, Dan, of the document, its second paragraph talks about we begin the year with 89 authorized positions in operations.
Mhm.
74 are represented. What, the other 15 are just unfilled positions or?
No, the other ones would be non-union employees.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
I see.
This is great. I like the specific questions in the document. That just shows that, you know, that it is informative and, you know, it's generating good questions. So keep them coming for sure. Shall I go back to the presentation?
Careful what you wish.
I know. Okay, no, that's fine. Open and transparent.
Transparent.
Any other questions on the document itself, or should I go back to the PowerPoint?
Go ahead. We'll try and track with your slides.
Okay, so let's talk pension for a minute. So our monthly payments to MERS are about $3.5 million. So again, talking about our all the competing interests we have, wanting to share a fund balance at the end of 2024 that staff feels comfortable with. We did not feel that we could include that extra payment that we make, which is about $500,000 for our pension for the initial budget that we're providing to the board. Now, if you recall, we received a $4.5 million grant from the state of Michigan that went directly to MERS. So what will happen is that will be included with our December 31st, 2023 actuarial report. And it's my anticipation that MERS will incorporate that with our other assets and liabilities and everything, and will show, okay, this is how much the road commission needs to pay us on a monthly basis. So I'm anticipating that will be lower than what we're paying now. If that is the case, then we may be able to make that extra payment because the monthly payment is going to be less than we're budgeting. So we might be able to make the extra payment without making any adjustments to the budget. Does that make sense? Okay, but you know, it's unknown. There's so many factors that play into, you know, what was MERS's interest rate of return, what happens with the mortality tables, you know, what, you know, people come and go. So, you know, I can't get my crystal ball out and tell the board exactly what those numbers will be. Certainly we'll share that with you. But we're hopeful that maybe we can make that additional $500,000 payment within the confines of the budget that we're presenting to you for pension, the initial one. So does that make sense? Or are there any questions on that? It's kind of an important thing.
Commissioner Yamas?
So not on that particularly, but will the grant money show up as income? You said assets.
Right.
Right. It'll be an asset, not an income, but I know that it will be on the other side of the balance sheet also, right?
It actually, so that if you recall, the payment went directly to MERS.
Right.
So that'll just show up as, I guess, assets, or, you know, it'll contribute to our funded level for our overall pension program.
Okay.
But we don't get a check.
Right.
No.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Dan,
Commissioner,
oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Green.
The healthcare expense, is that for active employees and retirees?
Correct.
Oh,
Yes.
and is there any, I mean,
We're talking pension right now. You want to talk OPEB?
oh, well, I'm looking at healthcare costs here. Is that,
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
that's distinct from pension, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. And so that's for the rest of a retiree's life?
It's called pay as you go for 2024.
I see,
Mhm.
okay.
So again, Blue Cross sends us a bill and we pay it for both actives and retirees each month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that make
That's-
sense? Answer your question?
That's the next bullet point. The $4.7 million is the monthly bills from Blue Cross for actives and retirees. If you recall, we also have our OPEB obligation, other post-employment benefits, which is primarily retiree health care. We've traditionally have made an additional payment of about $500,000. Again, where our fund balance is at this point in time, we didn't feel we could include that extra payment. It's my hope, again, with the numbers coming in better for 2023, that in the first quarter that we can make an adjustment and include that. And I'm certain it's one of our higher priorities when we look at where we came in 2023, what happened with winter in the first quarter, and what can we hopefully add back. I'm sure that will be towards the top.
Commissioner Smurfs, did your hand go up? No, Mr. McNeil.
Yes, Dan, on these two topics of pension and OPEB, we get a financial audit of where we're at with those two topics. When do you anticipate that coming to this organization so that we can then well informed on our payments, extra payments?
So MERS has an actuary each year based on the 12/31. So we'll get one for 12/31/2023, probably late spring, early summer.
So by Q2, we'll have that report.
Correct. Yeah.
Great.
And then the OPEB report, if the board recalls, we're required to have an actuary every 2 years. So we won't have one until 2024, year-end 2024. And that takes several months.
Yeah.
And so we probably won't have that till summer of 25.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. Any other questions on those are obviously two very important items. We've made promises to our employees, our retirees. We want to make sure that we're sticking to that. Also, we shared with you the reporting for the state of Michigan, where if we're considered underfunded, we have to do an action plan and all that. So certainly it's important to the state of Michigan, but I feel like this agency, with the extra payments we've made, with the 4.5 million grant that we have, I feel like we're doing kind of all we can, again, with all of our competing needs to address those. And then the last.
Go ahead. Our OPEB, we're beyond our 40% required funding level, right? So we have a little breathing room. We do there. Yes. With respect to an additional contribution.
For the state of Michigan's requirements, we are more than funded. So we don't trigger the underfunded level that would require an action plan.
And with pension, we have to wait and see what the impact of that $4.5 million grant is to know where we are. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes. Yep.
And you can see for capital road equipment, we are anticipating $5.7 million. That's the $2 million carryover from 2023. The 5 heavy trucks we talked about. I think there's some graders in there. There's actually an appendix with all the road equipment we're planning on purchasing in 2024. So, again, we're at the mercy of the suppliers a little bit. But that's what we've included with the budget, and we'll work with Adam through the course of the year. And obviously, if we're having some challenges with delivery, then we would make sure that anything that's not going to be delivered till the next year, we carry that budget over as well. So I guess we'll wait and see on that.
That equipment list is in Appendix L, page 28.
Pages are a little different.
Dan's gonna put it on our screen here.
Yeah,
Thank you,
31.
Dan. I appreciate that. It's an important topic, so it's good to review the list.
So there it is on your screen. So we got the 8 heavy trucks, the upfitting portion, 9 pickups, SUVs, poly tanker, semi truck, couple graders. So it's a lot, but we're pretty confident, right? That we can receive all this next year.
And the list of needs is longer than this, but it's what we felt we could support putting into the budget. And then this too will be reevaluated in Q1 and Q2 to see where we're at with things.
Any questions on the list? Oh, yes.
Commissioner Yamas,
So I see 9
pickups.
pickups, right? You're gonna price, but they've come in, they've not come, because I see that everything's ordered and hasn't come in. This is something we've already received.
We have not. So this is the 2024 budget. So
Okay.
that we were going to wait until we get into 24 because the light fleet is a little more availability. Heavy trucks and heavy equipment, typically the procurement time's a lot longer. So this is what we're budgeting for 24. Throughout the course of the year, we purchased 9 light trucks for our light fleet.
Do you agree, Mr. Finance Director?
Yes.
Thank you.
Most importantly, I got the head nod from Adam.
Right. Any other questions on this? Certainly this is very important and we want to make sure we're investing in our road equipment like we are our pension and OPEB and everything else. So, okay, I guess I'll go back to the presentation.
Commissioner Fuller.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Yamas.
And this doesn't have, I
Page
have
number?
page number 18. I have a question on line item expenditures. So, and I don't know if it's so much of.
What line are you on, please?
I'm on line 720.
Okay.
So unemployment, and I don't know that this is really a budget question, is they were 0 expenditures. We anticipated 10,000 and that's what we're going to do for 2024.
Correct.
And we've had a lot of people leave, but some fired, correct? How's that? This is 0.
So that's been our trend and it's probably been, this is probably a little bit higher. This may have been like the highest we've ever seen it.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of claims, our HR department does a great job getting those and disputing. Sometimes you have people that retire and ask for unemployment. I mean, I've seen all sorts of crazy things with this.
Yeah.
You know, and it is something that we can monitor over the year and it's below the 10,000. So it's a bit random, but you know, I fully expect it to come in maybe half of that.
Okay.
But you know, we do see that from time to time. Sometimes those claims are approved.
Right, it's very rare, but
Very rare. Right.
Right.
Yep.
So I have another question on line 716. So our actual expenditures and what we anticipated.
Yes.
And we're anticipating less, but
Yes.
aren't we understaffed? So if we get fully staffed here, will that not be why our actual expenditures are, you know, more than what?
So that is something that the very first part of the year, we send a check to MERS for what our expected retiree health insurance costs are. And the reason we do so is it goes into the MERS trust and they have a great track record of earning high interest for us. So we are allowed to put that in, it's about $1.4 million. We're allowed to put that into the trust. And then we're allowed to pull that out to pay for those pay-as-you-go retiree health insurance costs at the end of the year. So what you're seeing, the 5.3s includes that 1.4, but very soon I'm going to ask MERS for the 1.4 back. So that's why the anticipated is less than the actual.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, it's just something we've been doing the last several years, been very successful. MERS has a great track record as far as, their rate of returns. We are very limited, probably a lot of it with good reason, as far as what investments the agency can get involved with. But this has been a successful initiative, in my opinion, over the years that we've been doing the last, 5 years or so.
And we can only do it with healthcare costs, right? I mean, we use them as a higher yielding parking place for some of our money.
Yeah, well, you need to establish like an independent trust. MERS very early established something that there were a lot of IRS rules. Mm-hmm. So they made sure that from that standpoint, they were on the up and up. MERS is a known commodity. They've already handled our pension. Again, their track record with rate of returns. So we just decided to do business with them. I don't know, 2007, long time ago. So basically when we first could establish a trust, or when this OPEB came into being, we started a trust, and I credit the board because the goal is to have that 100% funded. And then eventually, and as you know, we ended the retiree health insurance. So the goal is to have that 100% funded. It's a closed group. And at some point, when you're 100% funded, you can just use this trust to pay that down until the last person receives health insurance. So that is the intent of the agency. That's kind of a mouthful, sorry, but
it's okay.
Did I answer all the questions on that?
I think.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Green.
Looking at line item 890, there's an anticipated.
Page, I'm sorry.
On this particular.
Oh, this 18. Okay.
Mm-hmm. What's the basis for the increase, the anticipated budgeted increase for the claims paid?
From actual?
Yes.
From actual to anticipated, or from anticipated to 2024?
From the anticipated to 2024.
Just some history that we use. We don't know how much with claims that the agency will be responsible for. So obviously looks like we're trending pretty good for this year, and 2024 is more a historical number. And we'll just see through the course of the year how many of those claims that the road commission actually has to pay for, and then do the same thing. We'll adjust it at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Commissioner Yamas.
Thank you. So on line 716 on the same page.
Yes.
I think you did answer that budget, but there was one more. Let's see here. The workers' comp, our actual expenditure. And I know the workers' comp has to do with all of the employees, hopefully following all the safety protocols, sure. Right? So, the anticipated is 136, but our actual is 61. So the same thing is that 185 for 2024 is historical. Why did we go to 185?
So there's a few things that go into there. The County Road Association Self-Insurance Fund, or CRASIF, they invoice us on a quarterly basis based on our mod factor, and we talked about our mod factor being lower. On occasion, there are other payments that we make on that. Sometimes it could be a matter, they also, besides our regular financial audit, I get audited for workers' compensation. We try to estimate what our wages will be for the course of the year, and they come in and audit that, and they use a bunch of different factors. And so sometimes we have to pay them, and sometimes we get a check from them on that. So we need to include some of that in our numbers. Okay. So that's why it might, why is that higher? Because we're anticipating if we have to pay more for our workers' compensation audit, let's say, then, that would drive your numbers up a little bit.
Well, I know that workers' comp law at one time was 80% of your pay, but capped at 324, right? Is that changed to our?
I don't know the exact details. I do know that we received a refund this year, which obviously is coming into year end for 23 would be reflected. So we don't assume a refund for 2024 going into the year.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, and if you look at that number for workers' comp, when we were at our mod factor of 1 or higher, I want to say that those numbers were like double. So,
Okay.
you know, if you look at the trend, you would see that both of these are below, you know, what they may have been a couple of years ago.
Kudos to everybody, especially outside. Tough to keep those numbers down.
Absolutely. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that?
I don't see any.
Okay. Yeah. So talking about local roads, we already kind of mentioned the township matching program. Road Commission initially is contributing 2 million. The township's contributing 2. We're matching that with $2 million. We talked about ARPA. Commissioner McCollum already pointed out the program itself is 1.5 million, of which the township contribution is $1 million. And again, all those ARPA projects are spelled out very nicely. Thank you, Brent, in the 2024 local road project in the appendixes for you. There's a whole section actually with just the ARPA projects, which is great. So we've definitely have shared this before. We take a balanced approach. We want to invest in our roads, of course. We want to invest in our equipment and facilities. We want to have the best and brightest come work at the Washtenaw County Road Commission. And we also want to make sure we're making our pension payments, health insurance payments. So these are definitely competing needs, and staff does a really good job of balancing, you know, how much can we justify putting into the roads with how much equipment can we buy, making those extra payments when we can for pension and OPEB, you know, everything else. So, and we want to make sure we have a healthy fund balance. So all those things, and I think we do a really nice job of prioritizing and, you know, just determining where our money can be spent. So for next year, supply chain, more as it relates to equipment and materials. Hopefully we'll see even more improvements. The fact that we're paying for the CADs and chassis in 2023 means there's a light at the end of the tunnel as far as receiving some new road equipment, which is great. Hopefully that will continue. Mother Nature, we're budgeting against Mother Nature. At some point we'll lose. Who knows? Who knows what? I still think of the Veterans Day storm as an example. That was quite a hit, but anyways, but that's why, again, you have fund balance and so on. But again, depending on Mother Nature, we'll see if we can hopefully add some things back to the fund balance in the first quarter of 24. And the final 2023 year-end audited numbers, again, I feel really good about what we presented to you is probably closer to a worst case scenario. And I fully expect our bottom line to come in better than budgeted. And again, that's a good thing. And we can look at maybe adding some things back. So as far as next steps, in order for the Road Commission to open our doors on January 1st, we need an approved 2024 budget from the board. And we're required to have a public hearing, which would be on the first meeting in December, which is on a Wednesday, which is December 6th. So definitely very important. We'll have the public hearing, and that's just really, it gives the public an opportunity to question anything about the budget, to, you know, help us prioritize whatever the case may be. I don't think we've ever had anybody attend from the public, but you know, they're more than welcome. And again, we're required to do so. And also with those budgets that would be on the agenda for approval, both year-end 2023 and the preliminary 2024. If there are any changes from today that we shared with you, any significant changes, I should say, we would communicate that to the board. You know, for instance, if our road equipment is now $8 million instead of $5 million, we would communicate as to why. So, and if there are not, we would also communicate that there are no significant changes to it. So.
Just want to remind people that the proposed hearing date in the PowerPoint, if you have a hard copy, is listed as December 5th.
Yep.
Anticipating that we make that change in our meeting at 1 o'clock, it will be Wednesday, December 6th. I don't know if anyone out there is listening at the moment, but I just want to be clear that that meeting date is proposed to be changed.
thank you for pointing that out. That's something that Tiffany brought to my attention as we were doing our run through yesterday. So I appreciate her, catching that and at least getting this presentation updated. But I appreciate you pointing that out. Any other questions?
I believe I heard Mr. McDonnell make a comment at some point about a potential compensation study next year. And I was just wondering if that's provided for in the projected budget.
Yes, it would be in the budget.
Is it in the?
Yeah.
Would be under consultant services. There's a line item for that. We haven't gotten a proposal yet, so that hasn't been added to the budget. That's anticipated. We will get proposals, and then I anticipate either Q1 or Q2, we'd be amending the budget to include that.
So there is intention to do that at this point.
Correct.
I only remember hearing it as a side comment. I don't remember hearing that it was actually an RFP that was being put together or pursued, which is why I ask.
That is the intent to do so.
Okay, and just remembering our TPOAM contract expires October 3rd of 25. So this would be very helpful to have rolling into those conversations.
Any other questions? Before we go to the next topic, I just wanted to acknowledge staff, Cheryl and Matt and Brent and Adam, and also Aaron Burkholtz. So we've kind of had some new people join the leadership team with the budget process. Just countless hours go into looking at all the numbers. Staff is really good at looking at things maybe a little bit differently than I do, and we come together and maybe our numbers agree, maybe they don't, but we have some healthy discussions. I enjoy the project discussions as far as what is in, what is out, and and I think staff just really works well with each other. Some of these are difficult because there are projects we would really like to happen, but also we are very cognizant of our fund balance, and I just really appreciate all their efforts in looking at things and double checking my work, and it's truly a team effort, and I just appreciate all the hours everybody puts in, and even their staff. Adam has several of the operations staff, Jeff Mann and Mike Livesey, looking at all these numbers and just sharing their perspectives or allowing them to ask questions. So you want to engage as many folks as possible, because then it just makes it a stronger budget. So, and lastly, I'd like to acknowledge Tiffany and Aaron for all their hard work and efforts. We try to minimize the number of changes that we make towards the end, because they're trying to get their spreadsheets ready and incorporate them into the great budget document. Inevitably, there are things maybe we don't catch right away, or changes we want to make, and they're just great to work with. They're very flexible, very patient with us, and again, it really truly is a team effort. And Tiffany, we did a practice run, which was very helpful yesterday for all this. Worked out a lot of bugs yesterday, so mostly on my part, but I want to just acknowledge them as well, because they're great to work with, and it takes a lot to put this together. So definitely not just me, for sure. Yeah.
And I think it's a great tribute to the transparency efforts of this organization in terms of the document and the numbers and the appendices, and the opportunity to ask questions and fly spec what you've got in here. So it's wonderful that you give us the opportunity to see the numbers, to ask questions about them. And by golly, you've always had an answer. So
yeah, we try. So if not, I definitely would research and get back with you. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any other questions or anything for Dan? Commissioner McCollum?
Yes, I just found the reports very user friendly, and I appreciate that.
Great. No, that was definitely the intent. So.
Commissioner Green.
Do you mind if we give Dan and his staff a big hand? They did a wonderful job.
Appreciate it. I mean, this is a big deal and very important, and And I'm glad the board isn't necessarily overwhelmed with the information, because I think it's good that the board has a good understanding, the public, other politicians, whoever, should feel comfortable about it and feel like they can ask questions and find the information that they want to find. So.
And this is posted on our website, is it not?
Yeah, it will be.
So if you get hit with questions, point them to this document on the website. See, check it out. And if you still have questions, we're happy to help.
Right.
So, thanks, Dan.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's take a 5-minute break here. It's 10:44 at the moment. Let's take your break and come back as soon as you're ready to get started again. All right, we will come back to session here, and we're going to dive right into the 2025-28 Washtenaw County Road Commission roads and non-motorized millage plan, talking specifically about road issues. Anything?
I'm going to hand it straight over to Matt McDonnell, Brent Schlapp.
All right. Take it away, gentlemen.
Hello, commissioners. Matt
Identify
McDonnell,
yourself. Yeah.
Director, Managing Director. And then with me is
Brent Schlack, Director of Engineering.
So we are presenting the draft millage plan for the road commission. This has been a huge collaborative effort between both our engineering and operations department. I've been very excited to hand the reins over to the heavy lifting to Brent Schlack, but what you see before you is essentially our map. We love our maps, and in the map, what you have is the various years of the millage: 25 in green, 26 in red, 27 in yellow, 28 in blue. And then we've highlighted those roads which are going to receive some work. On the map as well, you see the black border. That border represents the county commissioners' districts. And then the number in black is that district number. Just so you're aware of what we're representing on this map, because we'll be using this map moving forward, and we can modify it however we see fit to communicate to our county commissioners, our townships, to seek their input as well, along with the public eventually. But we wanted to first present our plan to you commissioners, and then along with this map is the various tables of the roads that are being worked on. So the tables are identified by year. This plan essentially looks to spend about $5 million a year, roughly. Now, when we look at the map, you can kind of see in some of our more urban areas, you're going to see more color. Because ultimately what the goal of the millage is, whatever is raised in that community, that township, gets put back into that community or township. And so our townships with more property tax revenue are going to see more projects. Makes sense. Some of our more rural townships may only see a couple of projects, maybe even one. And because it's maybe a really expensive project where we're having to reconstruct or resurface a roadway, and we're only able to fund with the millage that project. But our goal typically is to invest using our asset management strategies, just trying to extend that service life of the roads, keeping our good roads in good condition, moving our fair roads into good condition as well, with maybe some resurfacing or seal coat. And then we are also trying to address some of the poor conditioned roads. So that would be where we would do a pulverize or reconstruct and resurface. In addition to that, we don't want to forget about our gravel roads. So there are a number of gravel road projects as well. So our soft surface roads see investment with millage dollars. Mostly all of the investments mostly, I should not say all, mostly the investments are focused on primary roads. There are some, one in particular, Bemis Road, and we've done this in the past where it's between two townships, and we have chosen to use millage dollars to do some investments where it may be challenging because you've got a borderline road between two townships. Bemis Road, this one is in between Ypsilanti and Augusta Township. Now I'm going to try and zoom in. Tiffany taught me a new trick. Very good. All right, I managed to do it. So Bemis Road, this is that green segment right here. This is an example of a border local road that is listed in the millage plan for a gravel road resurfacing. So basically from Whitaker Road to Rossonville, that's what's in the plan for the millage. So how would you know that based on it just being green? Well, you wouldn't. So what would you do, for example, would go over into your tables, which you have printed out. The table is sorted first by county commissioner, county district, then by township, then by road name. And then it's also each table is represented by one of the millage years. So that is 2025. So I should be able to find it pretty readily under District 5, Ypsilanti Township. I'll highlight it here. You'll see Bemis Road, Whitaker to Rossonville. And then you have a limestone overlay. And then ultimately, these dollars listed in the table are planning dollars. So you're looking at, in general, how long the road segment is, what's the treatment that we're going to do, the type of work, and then what's the treatment cost per center line mile, and then that's how we get our total costs. So that's how the millage plan is assembled. Any general questions, or Brent, did you have anything to add to that?
No, it was a interesting exercise to go through. You know, it was a collaborative effort, like Matt said, and I really appreciate those of you know, Ken Harris, Alan Squire, our GIS, putting the maps together. Those particularly were very useful, but there was a lot of, Mike Bernbeck was another one that really helped scope some roads. So it was a collaborative effort, and it's a puzzle. So we're looking at our federal aid, we're looking at other sources of projects that we're funding, and we're trying to fit these all in to then make sure we have our system in a good and fair condition.
Within the constraints of these dollars.
Correct.
Right? Questions, Commissioner Green?
Yes, the projects that are proposed, they are selected by the townships. Is that correct?
No.
No.
So
no?
we use our asset management strategies, and we determine, hey, these are the primary network. Where are the needs? What, as you recall, our board has adopted an asset management plan whereby our goal is for us to have 80% of our primary system in good or fair condition. So what is it going to take to get 80% of our primary roads in good or fair condition? The millage is a vital funding source to achieve that goal. So what we're doing is, keep in mind, as part of our asset management strategy, we rate our roads every year, our paved roads. So we do a PASER rating, and that's 1 through 10, and that really depends. It gives us that breakdown in very simplistic terms: good, fair, poor. And then based on those ratings, what would be the scope of investment to extend that service life? So that's where Brent, his staff, and Adam and his staff would use that collaborative effort to say, all right, given $4.5 to $5 million a year, what would you do? And keep in mind that you have to spend the money that's raised in that community. What would you do in Pittsfield Township? What would you do in Scioto? What would you do in Ypsilanti? Those are the kind of discussions that took place. And we are trying to ultimately achieve that goal of 80% of our roads in good or fair condition.
And I'll just add that we are listening. And so there are some projects that we've heard through the township that meet both of our needs. And, you know, for instance, we brought up Bemis Road. We've heard that from the township. And so that's one area that as we were looking to put this together and as we considered, and we were like, oh yeah, that's a borderline road, you know, that's between two townships, and that'd be a benefit to have within this plan. And so it's not that we're using our asset management practices and that process, but we also do have our ears open. We're listening and where we can both benefit. Those are great projects.
Commissioner McCollum and then Commissioner Yamas.
Yes, I was looking at, so Bemis Road, I know that's a shared road between Augusta Township and Ypsi Township. So for 2025, you have that the road on Bemis being worked on as a Ypsi Township Road. And then further down, you have it as a Augusta Township Road. The yellow for 2027.
Yes, so that's a different segment, and ultimately that's a different treatment type. So as part of the 2024 budget, we're going to be paving Bemis Road between Hitchingham and Stony Creek. By 2026, we will need to do a seal coat. So that's what we're funding through the millage program in 2026 on Bemis Road. Now, it is a borderline. Sometimes it's listed in Ypsilanti, sometimes it's listed in Augusta. We can clean that up in the table. We probably should be giving credit to both.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure we do that. And just to piggyback kind of the statements about, are these township selected projects? As part of this process, we're presenting it today to you folks. It's most importantly, we get your input and feedback. Then the next steps would be ultimately talking to our townships, sending this same material to our townships next month. And then our intent is to host meetings, various meetings. We did, I think, 3 last time, and where we invited townships in to talk about our millage plan and those asset management strategies that we're applying to achieve our goal. And to talk about, hey, do you have comments on the various roads listed in the plan? And we can make changes. It's just those things that we can't do are like, I want to trade a chip seal for a reconstruct. You know, it has to be the same value. So we only have so much money generated in each township. If they want different roads to focus on that are a higher priority, then we can do that. For instance, we've heard loud and clear from Pittsfield Township, State Road is a priority for them. So we've listed various segments of State Road in the millage plan. Ypsilanti Township, we've heard very loudly and clearly that they want to see investment on Bemis Road between Whitaker and Rawsonville. We also know Rawsonville is an important corridor that needs investment, and we've heard from them numerous times in the past. But again, we are open to making changes. It is a draft. This is we are seeking your input. Then we're going to seek township input, and then ultimately we will close that commentary period, because this is the information we want the voters to see before they cast their ballot on yes or no. What the success of this program is they see exactly where the dollars are going to go in their community, and they can, that if we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it.
So if the Augusta Township says you've done enough on Whitaker Road with the roundabout, now you're coming back, well, even though that's 2027, and they said they don't want that, does that mean you won't do it? Or
the roundabout is different because that's federally funded.
Right.
But
they don't have
if they had a choice and they said, no, we really think you need to invest in Willis Road rather than Whitaker Road. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
We can look at that. Hey, we'd rather see the chip seal on this segment of Willis Road rather than that segment of Whitaker Road. Yeah, absolutely. We can look at that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yamas.
So I heard some answers, but one of my questions is the Pfizer rating. And I know that you do the Pfizer rating if you laid it on top of this. So it's not based on that because what you answered, we're continuing to keep our the 80%, right?
Yeah, the PASER rating is the condition assessment rating, and we use that to scope our projects. If the road is a PASER rating of a 7, it's probably a very good candidate for a seal coat. If the PASER rating is a 4, it's probably beyond doing a seal coat, and you need to resurface it for an HMA mill and resurface. Higher level investment, right? A 7, that seal coat is going to cost $40,000 a mile. Whereas if we're going to pave the top course, repave the top course, you're talking $200,000 a mile. So those are the kind of decision making that Brent and Adam were looking at when we were evaluating which roadways.
And I understand the tax, where taxes are paid the most. It seems like where the road work is done, but I have heard from people like I don't see anything being done in Manchester, Sylvan, very little. But of course, people talk to me from York Township about why don't we get anything done close to Milan, but trying to explain to them where the borders are, where Washtenaw County stops. But I do see there's some work done, or trying to explain to people why the work isn't being done. Why is so much work being done in Pittsfield Township? Why is so much work being done in some other area opposed to theirs? When everybody in the county votes for this millage, right?
Right. For example, you brought up Manchester Township. So the 4-year revenues in Manchester is $366,000.
Okay.
The 4-year revenue in York is $840,000. And just talking about those numbers,
yes,
200,000 a mile, that doesn't go very far.
Right.
So that's where this millage plan, what's unique about it is you're putting the money right back into that community that raised it. And in some cases, like Sharon or Manchester, the road commission is putting a little bit more.
Yeah.
To accomplish a meaningful project.
Right.
So if you're interested in the spending per township, happy to share that with the board here. We can summarize spending per township. We have all those numbers. We track it very closely. But yeah, at the township of Pittsfield, over the course of 4 years, they're at like $3.8 million. So there's great disparity between the amount raised in each community. So that's why you're going to see a lot of projects in Pittsfield versus Sharon or Manchester.
And I understand we try to, like, we offer more money in some of those areas because obviously it's population, right? Much more popular.
The millage is based on property values, not population.
Okay.
Yeah, it's property values. Mm-hmm. So it's $500,000 on your property. Taxes. Okay. So overall, the millage for the road commission townships communities will raise, what is it, 18.6 million dollars. This plan that's put forth is roughly $20 million.
Over 4 years.
Over 4 years. Right. Over 4 years. So okay. That the plan for the 4 years that's depicted on this screen is $20 million. Of that, only 18.6 is coming from the millage. So we are putting in money into this plan as well. And oftentimes it's in those communities that don't see a lot of projects because we're trying to do something of significance in those communities, like a resurfacing.
Right. Thank you.
That's what's unique about this millage. Other countywide millages, The allocation is decided by the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay.
This millage is levied per township. If you've got $10 in from Superior over the course of that 4 years, they'll get their $10 back. But if you're only putting in $1, that's what you'll get back over the course of 4 years. This millage is very unique in that way, which is a concept that's challenging to convey, which is what I believe is one of its strengths. So when someone says you're taxing us to death, we can say the money that's raised in your township is coming back to your township. It's not going anywhere else. Can't say that about any of the other millages.
Particularly a countywide millage, absolutely.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, some of these townships have local road millages as well. So in addition, they're taxing their residents. But again, that they spend that money the way they see fit in their township because they levied it.
And keep in mind, the last vote that we had like a 77%
Yep.
approval rating on this millage. And so it's very popular.
And it passed in almost every precinct too.
Correct. Right.
Well, and that's important, right? My question is most educational for hopefully somebody out there watching.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
this. That's it.
There you go. Commissioner McCollum.
Yeah, I just had a question with the treatment costs per center line mile. I noticed that some of them are NA, even though, what is that? What does that mean? Some of them.
Oftentimes we'll be doing a resurfacing project on the Gettys Road roundabout. So the interior of the roundabout needs to be resurfaced. So it's not a real good, it's variable width all over the place. So we're just going to say, all right, that cost is going to be $150. We scope that out. We know how much that's going to cost. Another example could be the road goes from 2 lanes to 3 lanes to 4 lanes. And so you can't get a real good cost per mile. So you just scope out the actual cost. Another example could be it's matching some dollars. State road corridor, it's going to be a widening and a resurfacing project in Pittsfield. That's going to be very expensive, but we anticipate supplementing other funds to help fund that project. Could be federal funds, could be Pittsfield Township themselves for that project. So we're dedicating a lump sum to that project. It's not going to fund it totally, but it's a portion of that.
So where does that come from? The
other portion
okay.
Could come from state or federal funds, could come from the road commission itself, could come from the township. A good example is I referenced Bemis Road paving is in the 2024 road commission budget. We are getting, I think it's 300,000 or 400,000 from the millage, but it's a $1.some million project. The rest of that's coming from the road commission.
Okay, yep. Good questions. This is a complicated concept to talk about.
And we welcome your feedback. I know it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to review. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, if you've got questions, comments, see a row that you are, hey, why isn't this listed? It really needs some help. Let Brent or I or Adam know, and we can start looking at that. Again, this is a draft plan. This is our plan. It's going to change. There's going to be some revisions here. But what our goal is to get this out to the townships next month and then schedule meetings in January. We kind of had a tentative timeline that we talked about in the past, and we're working towards that timeline. Some things are becoming known. For instance, I feel fairly certain that the primary election for the state and local officials is now August. So that's a known quantity now. The next challenge also we're facing is to get it before the Board of County Commissioners to get it on their agenda, to get it on the ballot. That will be a separate effort, but working at the same time, we've got to keep this progress moving, not only to get it on the ballot, but also to get our plan and comments on that plan out there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Board of County Commissioners has the authority to put this question to the ballot, not to approve the plan.
Correct. But oftentimes when we're asking them to put it to the ballot, they're asking us, what is the plan?
Understood.
Yep.
I'm just trying to draw the distinction between, it's between the road commission and the townships where the dollars go over the course of the 4 years. It's not before the Board of Commissioners, which of course other countywide millages are, right?
That's been our practice, and that's what we intend to do moving forward.
And when will this be conveyed or shared with any of the county commissioners? Because based on our recent joint session, that question has been raised.
So my intent is with the transition with Cheryl retiring, introduce myself to the county commissioners. I'll take that opportunity to introduce myself and then go straight into millage discussion and sharing the plan that we have for our road, and let them know that I'm working with the cities as well to get their plan and county parks, so that we can present what we know is the plan for the 25 to 28 millage. So that is the intent over the course of the next month, is to make contact with our county commissioners, have that dialogue individually, but then I anticipate, we're probably going to have to share that with that board at some point, this plan and all the information we gather from the cities as well.
I just think it's important for the commissioners to understand the partnership between the road commission and the townships in developing this plan.
Absolutely.
Questions, comments? Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of work. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on this? No? Okay. This is just a big deal, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I can remain up here for the next agenda item if it's your pleasure to move on.
Okay. Draft calendar for next year. Calendars. We have chat, we have meetings, and we have working sessions.
So you've been provided the board meeting schedule, what you have before you on the screen as well. We do have a couple of nuances. Obviously, we meet first and third Tuesday. However, on this calendar that's being presented, March 18th is Monday because of the CRA Highway Conference. So that's historically we've moved that so that we all can attend that CRA Highway Conference. It's a great opportunity for learning and also to network with our other commissioners and to participate in that very educational, good experience that CRA puts on. And then additionally, we have the December meeting, December 4th on a Wednesday, because typically, again, we have a CRA symposium. Typically the legal symposium is that day on the 3rd, December 3rd. So we are anticipating that and moving our historic Tuesday meeting to Wednesday. Any questions or comments on the board meeting schedule?
Do any of you know of other major events that we should be anticipating with our meeting schedule? We've made some adjustments this year, which have worked out okay. My preference is that going forward, we know when we're meeting and why.
Okay. We can go to the working session. That'd be all right? Sure.
Certainly.
All right. What we have before you is a robust list of topics for working session dates. Historically, it's the We've got them scheduled for the third Tuesday of the month. The only exception would be on March 18th. That CRA Highway Conference, we would just cancel the working session potentially for that day. Other than that, we'd be meeting on working session topics every month except for March throughout the year. And here is just a draft list of topics. Welcome any input you have on the draft list of topics. Some meetings we have 2 topics, yep. Others 1, and we can always add or subtract to the board's desire.
I'm forgetting why the working session for March 18th is scheduled potentially as a cancellation when we're saying we're going to meet on that day anyway.
We can still host it. Sometimes we have committee meetings for staff that take place on Monday. So we thought that potentially we could.
In conjunction with the highway conference.
Correct.
Coming in
correct,
the day
on
before.
The 18th,
I
yes.
see.
So that we could free up staff to attend that. That was the thought there. Thank you for pointing that out.
And there are certainly members of the board that are committee members as well.
Potentially there may be some conflict there, but we thought it important to keep the board meeting that week so that we can continue to have 2 meetings a month. I don't anticipate it being too much trouble. Typically those committee meetings are more staff focused. There may be the negotiating committee that meets.
Or the commissioners committee.
Or the commissioners committee.
Or the Roads Plus committee.
But historically, I think we've managed through that on that March CRA Highway Conference. The December has been the more the one that obviously this afternoon will be shifting for.
So maybe as people attend their committee meetings in December, see what's on tap for March at the highway conference. Are those all going to be on Mondays? Are they not? What's the deal so that we can know where we stand on the calendar? Thanks for that reminder.
No problem. Any comments on topics? Anything you'd like to see added?
Commissioner Yamas.
I'm really interested on the Gallup poll, if you will, the polling you did where employees feel like we need improvement or where,
the
employee
satisfaction survey.
The employee satisfaction survey. We've not seen the results of those or heard those. And
yeah, so we are anticipating with the Gallup, it was a 3-year commitment. Ultimately, we anticipate having another engagement survey in March or April. I'll have to get with Nicole on that. That's why we have it listed on the June 18th. So you'll get the HR overview and the Gallup update on June 18th. So you'll kind of see that where we're at as a snapshot in time. The results of that survey after having been talking Gallup for a year, getting it surveyed again in March or April, and then we can report back to the board in June.
Okay, so I don't remember receiving how the first one went. So would that be included? Like, this is how the first one went and this is the improvements. Okay.
Compare and contrast.
Compare and contrast.
Here's how we started and now here's where we're at. Snapshot in time.
Okay.
Commissioner McCollum.
Madam Chair, I like the Click Fix. Is that going to be on how to use it or?
Yeah, so we'll go through how a user would go and make a service request through C-Click-Fix or WCRC Fix It as we branded it. And then also from staffing standpoint, how do the foreman get that information, process, prioritize? How do we do reporting? How do we report out? You'll see it in the board packet. Just basically a little deeper dive into the C-Click-Fix tool in our toolbox that we use for communicating with the public and really routing those requests and closing the loop on what we're going to do and how we're going to address it.
Right. I tried to use it for something on US 12 and then I thought, oh, that's really MDOT.
Right.
But how would someone else know that if they were feeling?
So the system itself, for instance, our road commission uses it and the city of Ann Arbor uses it, which is really nice because we're a lot of times, you know, having to point in the residents in the right direction on whose road is what. MDOT doesn't currently use C-Click Fix, so you would have to contact, I think what it would typically do, and I'll have to ask Emma or Tiffany how that would respond. My guess would be that's not our road, and so you'd have to contact MDOT Brighton Transportation Service Center. Yep, and then
That's
if
accurate.
it's the good news is with the city of Ann Arbor and us using the same system, it actually routes it automatically, which is really nice.
That is nice.
That's a big feature. So if you put in the app and you map it and you're on the road commission website and you're filing the service request, it'll actually automatically route to the city of Ann Arbor. Because if it's determined, nope, that's the city's road, it's going to route that to them. So it's a really nice feature.
You must have brought up the number because that's what I end up doing is calling.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd encourage everybody to use it, try it. I talked with Tiffany a while back about a glitch that I discovered. Commissioner Green.
And I would like to see some presentation on the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay.
During the past year, I attended an excellent presentation offered by Dickinson Wright, the law firm of Dickinson Wright. That really spoke to the issue. I thought that I understood that issue. I assure you, it's much broader than you might ever imagine. And it was a 2-hour presentation. I would love to see something like that being presented as it relates to workplace issues, because that's definitely one.
That's definitely a training topic on our agenda that we need to further dive into, because it is a very the depth of that topic is more complex than you would imagine. And I too have attended the Ypsilanti Ann Arbor Chamber of Commerce, a couple of speakers twice now. They put on some great events, and so I'm getting better understanding as well. So I'll be working with Nicole Peterson, and that will definitely be a part of our HR overview, I would anticipate, and then looking for an organizational training topic at some point next year as well. Spring training might be an opportunity to start the discussion on that. Thank you.
Other thoughts? Commissioners Committee might take that under advisement too. I don't know what you've got planned for future educational sessions, but especially if Rod heard a particularly
I could suggest
powerful presentation.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the input there. We also have before you the chat schedule, and this is a little more intense. It's a weekly schedule. So if you need to make changes or horse trade days, let Aaron know, obviously. And with that, I didn't have anything further on calendar schedules for 2024.
I just want to be clear, if you need to change your day, you make those arrangements with someone else. It's not up to Aaron to find somebody to fill your spot. That's how we've operated. Everybody's been great. I just didn't want
thank you.
Any misunderstanding about who needs to do that. And then let Aaron know, because then you produce another version. And she always dates it in the lower right-hand corner, so you know which copy you're getting on what day. Any questions on any of this? An incredible amount of work has gone into the material we got today. Thanks to everybody. Okay. What else? Anyone? Great job. All right. Yeah, like usual. I would appreciate a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support. Aaron, if you would, please.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff Smurs.
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas.
Yes.
And Commissioner Burkholder.
Yes, we are adjourned.